Do you see any connection with how are these predators able to use religion to manipulate victims?
Yeah, well, this isn't anything new. I mean, that is why Satan is called the master deceiver. And when you think of religion, there is immense trust that's supposed to be built within that. They are supposed to be trusting these religious leaders as someone who's going to shepherd them spiritually. And so they are going to put more faith in what they're saying. However, sometimes that trust can be misguided to where people can be so trusting that they forget to evaluate whether or not what is being spoken to them or told to them is actually objectively true. And so I'm familiar with the Epstein trial. I did watch Keep Sweet myself. I haven't seen the third one. And I've read up within abuses within the FLDS church as well. And you see this blueprint of sort of like the pattern of how it is. Anytime somebody is outside of God's design, there is always abuses that are going to occur with the destruction and breaking down of the family and sexual abuses. It's almost universal when you start looking, especially at cult movements. It always comes in the breakdown of the family and the exploitation of women. And you see that not only within church history, but also within modern culture. And so it's really tragic. It is basically Romans 1:18 through 32. If you watch it, you see how this blueprint plays out. There is a shift of worldview. It always starts in the mind first, to where now there's this compromise of theology or this manipulation of theology. And then what that does is hyper focuses on carnal appetites. It says in oh gosh, it's like verse 22 of Romans 1, that 18 through 32 passage, to where it's they knew God's design, but instead they turned away from it and raised up idols in the image of themselves and created beings or of animals. And then that just leads, and once the appetites are indulged and corrupted, then it leads to this false identity claim, which, especially within FLDS, this is what you were supposed to do as a woman. That's what they were told. In fact, they were told this is how you get into heaven. So when you have someone who now all of a sudden their relationship with this man or with these husbands is the gateway to heaven, so many will compromise. And women by nature, there have been multiple studies done that women will actually compromise their own internal conviction for the sake of politeness, to where they will go too far with a guy just because they don't want to make him feel awkward or polite, even if they don't actually want to do these things. So we see women by nature, and this isn't every woman, but overall we're accommodating, we want to be helpful, that sort of thing, but sometimes that can even be to our detriment. And so when you think of a church setting, that there is that vulnerability, that desire to go closer to God, and then you have somebody who's supposed to be a religious leader, this authority figure that is supposed to be someone you can trust, and if they're saying, hey, this is what God is telling me, this is okay, we don't have to talk about this to somebody else, you will have people actually start to reason themselves into this abusive relationship and justifying it because they think, well, this is how I am to get to heaven, or this is what I just need to do, or it's not that bad, it'll be over in a few minutes. And it's tragic that all of these have this sort of similar blueprint that we're seeing within culture. And unfortunately, a lot of these women, when they're in this situation, they misconstrue the abuse God itself. So they will walk away from Christianity altogether because they think their abuser is the guidepost to Christianity. That's what they're supposed to have been, but they're not. And so there's almost this double brokenness, to where here sex is supposed to point back to the divinity and the relationship of God to the church, that is shattered and broken, and now they walk away from the faith altogether because they think that is what Christianity is. And so it's this, we have to not only minister to the brokenness, but also to help them understand what Christianity is and God's design for it. So again, it's a lot of work that has to go into not only ministering to the abuse that happens, but also rebuilding that faith foundation.